Good Monday, Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Glad you're with us. So much to get to here on the show as we have pro football this week with the Falcons and Jags back at it. Falcons and Titans preseason game number 1. Browns and Jags this week coming back. We'll get to all of that. The Braves with a solid weekend. They fall farther out of first, but they do leapfrog into second place. So there's that. We had the Hall of Fame inductions over the weekend as well. And, of course, college football counting down to the start of the college football season. We'll hear from Brooks Austin, Dogs Daily on SI.com. Will join us coming up here on the show. We'll look at the very latest from Georgia. Scott Cochran is out due to a leave of absence. Also, the first kind of injury of fall camp. We'll get the very latest with Brooks Austin on that. And, guys, obviously as well, the passing of an icon over the weekend. Bobby Bowden at age 91, passing away, just a true legend of the game in all sense of the word. Some things that he did at Florida State, we're just not going to see happen again, given the nature of the college game right now. I mean, I say that. Maybe Alabama and Clemson might be in the middle of a run kind of like that, but we're interested to see if they can make it a full decade and a half, finishing inside the top 4 the way Bobby Bowden's teams did. They're certainly in the 90s and into the early 2000s. So we'll hear from Dexter Carter, former Florida State running back, NFL running back, Super Bowl champion, actually played for and coached with Bobby Bowden during his career. So we will chat with him about that coming up a little bit later on the show as well. But BJ, Ben, certainly Bobby Bowden when it comes to college football, whether you're a Florida State fan or not, you know Bobby Bowden, you know what his imprint on the game of college football was and what the legacy he kind of leaves behind is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about one of the all-time great coaches in the history of the game, and the success at Florida State speaks for itself, pioneering some of the more up-tempo offenses we've seen, winning 2 national championships, winning a dozen conference championships, coaching countless All-Americans and building a program that became a dynasty. Ben, I know you competed against some of those Florida State teams during the Bowden dynasty era, but you also think about, Bobby Bowden's service to others. You think about his faith. You think about his, commitment to making the world a better place. And I think he positively influenced so many people. And it was really remarkable yesterday to see all the, players and coaches and media members and, people from all various walks of the college sports world come out, Ben, and talk about Bobby Bowden, talk about his impact on them, talk about just how personable he was and approachable and kind and genuine he was. So one of the all-time great college football coaches, a great man, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with his family and condolences to his family and to the Florida State community. But you think about Bobby Bowden, one of a kind, and just one of the all-time greats, and made college football in the world a better place.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough when I saw the news. And as you mentioned, BJ was blessed enough to be able to compete against some of those Florida State teams. It's hard for people outside of, what you do to recognize what you're doing while you're doing it. Everybody, whether you went to Florida State, played against Florida State, ruled against Florida State, if you knew about Florida State, certain people are synonymous with certain things. And you cannot talk Florida State without talking Bobby Bowden. And BJ, I think something you mentioned, the way he impacted people away from the game. He didn't fall short on the football field, just like he didn't fall short in life. His sons, Terry and Tommy, obviously followed in his footsteps. The greatest players to ever come through Florida State is because of Bobby Bowden. There is no Florida State football without him. And to have to be that much of an innovator, like I want to take something that doesn't exist, and I want to create something that will last a lifetime. And that's what he did. And when you talk about how many bowl games he won, how many consecutive teams he had in the top 10 or top 5 every single year, the hundreds of NFL draft picks that he had, the first round picks. But Bobby Bowden seemed to be the type of person that even if you didn't know him, you felt like you did. That his reputation was one of those things to where you saying, man, can this dude really be like this? And then you find yourself in a room with him or in a press conference with him or at a game with him or at a function with him. And he seems to deliver up to all of those things. So, yeah, Bobby Bowden will definitely be missed. When people talk about the gold standard of coaching in college football, we're talking about Bobby Bowden. We're talking about a guy that did it at a school for 40 years, I think, BJ, or over 40 years. And that's unheard of. You haven't done, most people, I'm just saying, I'm not going to tell my age, but I'm not too far away from being 40 years old. And this guy did it at one school for over 40 years. So yeah, from his family to his faith, to football, to the friendships, to who he was, what he was, he's the reason why, all these coaches now want to start from scratch. But yeah, Bobby Bowden will be missed, a legacy unlike any other, legendary. I mean, what can't be said about him that hasn't already been said?
And I think, as you said, kind of a guy that has left his mark on the game. BJ, and one of the guys I would say, even occasionally doing this for a living, you get every once in a while you try to catch yourself, but you will get starstruck. You cover guys, you say, oh, it's just a dude. But every once in a while, even amongst sports figures, you're like, that's so-and-so. Like, that's like, I can't believe, that's Nick Saban or whoever it is for different people. But as Vince said, when you got the chance to talk with Bobby Bowden, like, you never got that starstruck feel. At least I did. I always felt like, hey, I could be sitting down talking football with my granddad or something. Like, that's just kind of how he made you feel. And again, could explain it in a way that made a lot of sense. And again, I think, as Ben said, the impact on the football field, the fast break offense, the titles, all the things that become synonymous. But he impacted so many guys off the court. And I think that's one of those things that you see carried over into some of his proteges, where you see like a Mark Richt kind of guy, BJ, who was with Bobby Bowden for so long at Florida State. And you talk to guys who played for Mark Richt at Georgia, and their first answer is like, yeah, he's a great coach. We won a lot of games, but he impacted me more not on the football field than he did on the football field. And you really get the sense, you said, with the outpouring of thoughts and kind wishes towards Bobby Bowden. You got the sense from his former players that it was off the field meant about as much as it did what he did for him on the field. And again, when you can do that as a coach, that is something special. And man, you think about Bobby Bowden, and whether you were a fan of what he did for a living or not, like if you liked Florida State, you didn't like Florida State. I know if you were against Florida State, you're kind of like, man, I really wish Bobby Bowden would retire already. But you never questioned what he did off the field for his players, as far as trying to guide them in a right manner and things of that nature. And again, I think that's the legacy he leaves behind. And probably, I don't know this, but I mean, if you were to ask him, that's probably what he would want people to talk about more so than the 14 consecutive years of winning in the national titles. Was he had an opportunity to share his faith, share his life, share his kind of values with those around him, and pass that along to his players. And I would imagine that's probably what, at the end of the day, he would want to be remembered for.
No, it's well said, Kevin. And, you were talking about how sometimes in sports media, if you're being honest, there might be an interview where you're looking around going, oh, wow, I'm really talking to this player or this coach. And there was kind of a presence to Bobby Bowden where you always felt comfortable. You always felt like it was just a conversation, and that he valued your opinion. He wanted to hear what you had to say. And, you and I have been fortunate enough to interview him, always enjoyed those opportunities. And I had a chance, to meet Coach Bowden on a number of different occasions, talk with him on a number of different occasions, and just so genuine and so kind. And, when you sat down and visited with him, he would ask questions about you. Okay, where are you from? How's your family doing? And you're going, man, this is Bobby Bowden, like asking me this stuff. And it was just really special in this industry to kind of watch him from afar. Like you said, Ben, people ask, is Bobby Bowden like this all the time? Is he, dadgum this, dadgum that? And, tell me where you're from again. And yeah, he is. Every time you met him, it was just so, he was so personable, so approachable, positively impacted, so many people, and not just his players and, his former coaches. It was pretty remarkable to see yesterday, Nick Saban, Steve Spurrier, Kirby Smart, Shane Beamer, all of the Willie Taggart, all of these, coaches share their thoughts and kind of share their memories and how Coach Bowden influenced their lives, their families. And I think that's, a powerful lesson we all can take, is that, hey, when you're talking with someone, listen to them, value what they're saying, value who they are. And I think you saw Coach Bowden go out of his way, even if it was just a simple gesture or, a 30-second conversation, to make the most of those moments. And I think that is part of what made Coach Bowden so special.
Yeah, and BJ, even going back to what you said about him asking about you. Obviously, he was used to being in the limelight, always used to being the focal point. He's the showstopper. He is who everybody's coming to see. So he was like, well, let me shine my light back on the people, who's interviewing me, who's talking to me. And when I think of Bobby Bowden, I think of one word: original. Like, there ain't nobody like him. He's himself all the time, on the field, off the field, with his family, not with his family. Kevin, is what when you can start imitating people. That's how long you've watched them. The daggum, that's how long you watched them, and that it's something to say. I mean, like I said, being able to have been across the field from him, to share the same field with his team, and to just because he was a walking legend, right? And so pass down those obviously both Terry and Tommy got the coaching bug. I mean, what else were they going to do?
And Jeff Bowden coached with him at Florida State.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, BJ and Kevin, he's an original, and there is no duplicate. There will not be another Bobby Bowden. And like you said, the reason why you rooted against him because you couldn't beat him. And the reason why you loved him because he gave you a reason to cheer, gave you a reason to watch. And like I said, Florida State is the brand it is the team it is the university it is because of Bobby Bowden. It's not taking nothing away from the Leonard Hamilton, the different coaches on staff, but Bobby Bowden, he's in a class all of his own. He will be missed, and like I said, I mean, you see that Bobby Bowden passed away, and it just hits you. You're like, ooh, like he's 91 years. So 91 years is a long time. So it may I send my condolences to the Bowden family. I know they're really dealing with a lot right now.
Absolutely, and I know we've had Tommy on the show, and he speaks spoken often of his dad on this show with us as well. And again, BJ, I think before we have to step aside, I think you look at kind of Bobby Bowden, maybe a Joe Paterno, but you look at one of those guys now and say, Ben said nobody will do that again. And a lot of it might be because the scrutiny will be such that they will not be given time to let that come to fruition. How long did it take Bobby Bowden to develop and build and work his program to get it to the point that it ended up ultimately being in the 90s? You go back and look at some of those early records, and if this is 2020, you might be going year 4 or 5, man, do we need to make a change? You stick with it through the process, and all of a sudden, there it goes. And the rest, as they say, is history. We'll come back. We will talk more about that with Dexter Carter, former Florida State Seminole NFL running back, Super Bowl champion, played for Bobby Bowden and coached with Bobby Bowden. He will join us when we return. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here on this Monday, Kevin, BJ, and Ben. We are efforting Dexter Carter, former Florida State NFL running back, played for Bobby Bowden, coached with Bobby Bowden, won the Super Bowl as well during his time in the NFL, 25th pick in the 1990 draft out of Appling County and Florida State. So we are efforting him. I hope to chat with him here shortly on the show as we talk with him about the passing of Bobby Bowden, a true icon in the coaching game around the coaching world. And no doubt, I'm sure, BJ, coming up here at the first of the year, we will see the tributes to Bobby Bowden for Florida State, and I'm sure several others as we head here through 2021.
Yeah, of course. And if you haven't been to Tallahassee, been to Doak Campbell Stadium, Bobby Bowden, I believe the field there is named after Bobby Bowden. You also have a big statue of Coach Bowden in front of the athletic center, and a stained glass window, atop, I believe, the athletic football facility where it has Coach Bowden kind of looking out over the field. And, Ben, you mentioned it. Florida State football, you think about all the incredible success through the 80s and the 90s. You think about Deion Sanders and Derek Brooks and Charlie Ward and, Peter Warwick and Chris Winkie and, all of these incredible stars came through and helped build Florida State into a dynasty with Coach Bowden. And, his coaching legacy is incredible when you think about the coaches that have gone on to have success who learned under him, including Coach Mark Richt. So, yes, just absolutely one of a kind. And his legacy should absolutely be celebrated and remembered and honored this upcoming college football season.
I think when you start talking about how many players are going to be talking about Bobby Bowden, I mean, they can literally talk to a different player every single day of the year. That's how many players have come under him and have really, really, been impacted by him. And BJ, you throwing out names like, Chris Winkie, Heisman Trophy winner. Derek Brooks, the greatest weak side linebacker ever. Warwick Dunn, who does more in the community than Warwick Dunn does? Peter Warwick. And we was there to see his number get retired. Deion Sanders, the greatest. So Bobby Bowden coached the greatest cornerback ever and the greatest weak side linebacker ever. He coached a Heisman Trophy winner in Charlie Ward and in Chris Winkie. Won 2 national championships. I'm saying, man, this E60 30 for 30 Bobby Bowden, it's going to be a mini series, and it should be. So, yeah, he going to be – listen, you got former players – you got players that didn't even play for him like me who admired the man for what he does. He was just, it was just hard to beat him.
And we have found Dexter Carter, former Florida State NFL running back, 25th pick in the 1990 draft out of Florida State, played for Bobby Bowden, coached with Bobby Bowden. Dexter Carter joins us here on 3 and Out. Dexter, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you, guys.
I appreciate you coming on and joining us, sharing some thoughts about Coach Bowden. And as someone who played for Coach Bowden, someone who coached alongside Bobby Bowden, kind of just share your thoughts on those times that you were able to spend with him on the field as a player and a coach.
Well, playing and coaching for him was one a privilege and an honor, even back then, because he was a special man. Had an opportunity to be a part of his teams and be pushed to the brink of getting the best out of yourself, out of your teammates, to put you in a position to be successful on the field, which really worked for us. And, and it was just a lesson in life the same way. So that was his thing, is just making sure that his players had great character, and that if they did all the right things that he told us in life, it would carry over to the football field and we will be successful. So I had that same experience, with him as a player and, as a coach when I went back to coach for him.
Dexter, what will you remember most about Coach Bowden?
One, faith, family, and football, in that order. That's the way he lived his life. That's the way he encouraged everybody that he coached. From players and coaches, he encouraged them to make sure that their family came before football, because he realized that, one, if all those things are in order, it's going to carry over to the field. So that first and foremost. Of course, the X's and O's, the top teams in the country, meeting great people, because he recruited great people that fit what he wanted to do as a team. So all of those things were just tremendous. And, and even today, you know, uh, I'm sad for a moment, but there's too much to celebrate, too much joy and happiness to reflect on, to be continuously sad. That's not what he would want. I remember the last time I talked to him, 2 weeks ago. And he said what he said publicly, which was, Dexter, I'm at peace. And he went on to say, I believe that I have completed my mission that God put me on the earth for. So I'm good. We didn't know it was going to be 4 weeks later, or, that he was going to go home, to his Heavenly Father, our Heavenly Father. But nonetheless, he was ready, and he doesn't want us to be sad, because 91 years is special. I'm so glad for the time that he was given to us. And I'm glad that I'm glad that I was born during the time that he lived, so he can have the impact that I experience. I feel it every day, the impact he had on my life, giving me the opportunity to come out of Baxley, Georgia, and do something that I hadn't seen being done before, which was, go to college. I was the first one in my family to go to college, and he gave me that opportunity. So I'm very, very, not only just indebted, but very thankful.
And Dexter, you mentioned that last time you spoke to him, he told you that he was at peace. How important was that for you to be able to see his face? Most of the time when we have head coaches, we don't realize they teaching us life through football. They showing us who we really are past the game of football, even though football has been our end-all, be-all. Why was it so important for you to be able to see his face and to hear his voice in person for yourself?
Well, it was very important. One, because we always look back and we always say, man, I remember the last time that I saw such and such person in our lives, or, man, I wish I would have went to see him. So, those are things that we all deal with. But the passing of any relative that we have is obviously we value. But Coach Bowden touched his players and he touched his coaches. But he touched the regular fan that he may have only seen one time, because he made that person feel that they were important. That's what of many things that was very special about him, because he made everybody feel valued. And he was nobody could ever say that Coach Bowden didn't tell you the truth, that he was fake or he wasn't real. No, he was the same way with everybody. Of course, he was more special, to his players and coaches. But yeah. It was very important for me to, one, have that opportunity to talk to him, because that's why I'm at peace. I'm at peace because he made sure and clarified that he was at peace, and that allowed me, hey, I'm able to look back and take everything that my whole experience with him and move forward, and hope that through my life, people see him, see a portion of him, and, because he lives through all of us.
Dexter Carter joining us here on 3 and Out. And Dexter, you look at what Bobby Bowden did on the field. Do you think what he built at Florida State could ever happen in the same way again in college athletics, kind of given the spotlight that it's under constantly here in 2021?
Absolutely not. You made a good point. In the spotlight that is under now, times have changed, and that doesn't minimize or diminish what we were able to do, because for 14 straight years, Coach Bowden created a dynasty, with a team that never dropped lower than 5th in the country. And I was part of the first 3 that we never dropped lower than 3 in the country. So you look at what Nick Saban is doing at Alabama, and it is remarkable. But it's not what Coach Bowden did. You look at what Clemson is doing in the ACC, and it's not close to what Coach Bowden did. So what he did was really, really special, and it would never happen again. I remember, off topic a little bit, I remember this was after I left, but it was still part of that dynasty, time frame. He said, you got the Alabamas who are used to being number one. Got Alabama, who's used to being number one. Well, I want us to get used to being number one. And what he did is he built it. He built it from, when he wanted to play teams like Nebraska and LSU and they didn't mind playing, but they were like, no, you got to come to us, in my, in my words, they were saying, you too small. We're not coming to Tallahassee. So what he did is he built his team on the road. He said, let's go and we win. And he won on the road. And then he earned that respect, so that was just how he was. He didn't care what the rules were, as long as they were fair, and he did it just differently than coaches today or even coaches back then. You didn't have coaches that didn't, raise their voice. Now he may have raised his voice, but it was in a Bobby Bowden way, but he could get out of you. How you have guys now transferring all the time, and to each his own. If they think it's best for them, they should. But what's interesting is you never would have seen, even with the rules today, guys that we had transfer because one, Coach Bowden had pride, Mickey Andrews had pride, Chuck Amato, all those guys had pride in developing depth and encouraging you when it's your time, when you're on that field, you are a starter. And when it comes your turn, you rise to the occasion, and they prepared you for it. We were built for that. It was a great off-season program, great preseason program, and by the time the season came, we were built for that. And Coach Brown didn't just win with the dynasty. You remember 4 years after 1976, Coach Bowden had his team undefeated in the Orange Bowl. So this man is well respected because of how he built his teams. And I tell you, again, I'm just honored to have played for him and just have him give me the stamp of approval that I was worthy enough to play on his team.
Dexter Carter, our guest here on 3 and Out. Dexter, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing some thoughts and remembrances of Coach Bowden. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you guys. You guys take care.
Will do. Dexter Carter, our guest here on 3 and Out. We're coming right back. We're talking with Brooks Dawson, Dogs Daily on SI here on 3 and Out. Good to be here with you on this Monday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you're with us. Thanks for making us a part of your day. A lot of news there in Athens and the Georgia Bulldogs, and Brooks Austin from Dogs Daily on SI joining us here on 3 and Out. Brooks, welcome. How are you? Brooks, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
There we go. Brooks, I appreciate you joining us, man. What can you tell us about Scott Cochran? Obviously, that was kind of some of the big news there, that he was taking a leave of absence from the program.
Yeah, I mean, I know as much as you know as far as the public statement, and that's as far as I'll go. Yeah, Coach Cochran is stepping away for a brief time or an extended time, however long the time is going to be, to take care of some mental health issues and some health issues that he's dealing with in and of himself. And I'll be honest with you guys. I hope that the people that are responsible for covering this story and the people that are responsible for covering this football team and this sport handle this with a high caliber respect for the privacy of this man. He is a great individual, and I just hope that they just leave it be. There's no need to break this story. There's no need to dig in on this story. There's no need to do any type of special reporting. Leave it at the statement that was left by Kirby Smart yesterday, and leave it be until there's no need to do any additional reporting on this. Let the man handle whatever he's got to handle in his own privacy.
And we wish him the best. And Brooks, an injury we need to ask you about, Warren Erickson, center for the Dogs. What's the latest there? And if he is out for an extended period of time, how does that change things on the offensive front?
Yeah, I was actually tipped off on this Saturday evening. I know the news broke, and we broke it on Patreon. Yes.
Big injury there. We'll try to get Brooks. Brooks, do we have you?
You there?
There we are. We have you back. Go ahead, Brooks. Continue. We lost you there briefly when you started that last answer.
Oh, what I was going to tell you is I was tipped off on this Saturday afternoon after practice. This injury occurred to his snapping hand. As far as when he's going to be completely 100% healthy on his snapping hand, I was led to believe it's 4 to 6 weeks. Now, the deal is that Warren Erickson can obviously strap it up and play as an offensive guard with weeks. It's a matter of whether or not he can snap the football with whatever protection.
I think we're having some trouble. We'll try to get Brooks back there as well. Obviously, that's a tough injury there along the line early, BJ and Ben, and we'll try to get Brooks back here in just a minute. But how do you overcome that? At least it's early in camp.
Yeah, I think that's where you're going to have an opportunity to try out, new potential guys with the first team and see how it all gels. We've talked to a number of people about Georgia's offensive line, and look, a lot of talent, some guys that have a lot of experience, but can you play well together as a unit? And to be less than a month out from a season opener against Clemson, no less, who has the best defensive line in the country, you're going to need everybody to be on the same page. You're going to need a cohesive front. And I think Georgia can still accomplish that. But, Ben, these reps now for whoever steps in at center is going to be really important.
It is, and that's something that was probably going to be the biggest focal group going into camp is going to be the offensive line with so many weapons. I mean, JT Daniels, Eric Gilbert, Burton and those guys, Jackson and Washington, and you talk about Zamir White, you talk about James Cook, you talk about Kendall Milton. You got weapons everywhere, but now you got to retool an already retooled offensive line.
I believe we have Brooks Austin back here with us. Brooks, sorry, I just had some trouble hearing you there during the early portion, but explain to us how this impacts the line, and when you said 4 to 6 weeks, that's obviously going to impact the start of the season.
Well, so here's what can you hear me now? First,
yes, sir.
Hear me? All right. So I feel like the Verizon guy in those great commercials back in the early 2000s. But no, the 4 to 6 week timetable is more relative to the fact that he does play center. This injury occurred to his snapping hand, so he will probably be back in the rotation at some point far before that. But it's whether or not whatever protective measures that they have to take on his hand allows him to snap the football. So Warren Erickson obviously got his first career start at left or right guard, during the Sugar Bowl back in 2019. So if they feel like they must get him in the lineup, they definitely can do it at guard before that 4 to 6 week timetable that I was relayed. So it's a matter of whether or not he can snap the football. And if they feel like they're better off playing someone else at guard and letting a guy like Cedric Van Pran get his first career start at the center position, or if they feel like the best case for them is to start a senior or a junior like Jamari Sawyer at the center position, who does have a background at snapping the football, and starting a true freshman or a redshirt sophomore in their first real big-time football game like Xavier Truss, Roderick Jones, or Amarius Mims at that left tackle. That's what these next couple of weeks for Georgia now becomes about at the front seven and that front five, especially for them offensive line-wise. Going into camp, it was about, hey, who's going to play left tackle, and what do we do with that? And do we have enough trust in one of these young guys or one of these inexperienced guys to be able to kick Jamari Sawyer inside? Now with this injury coming from the first weekend of practice, now you've got some different questions to answer. And I personally truly believe in a guy like Cedric Van Pran Granger out of Warren Easton in the Louisiana area. I think he's as talented and as smart of a young football player as Georgia has on their roster. It's just a matter of what they best believe over these next couple of weeks will give them the best chance to win there against Clemson.
And Brooks, how much could something like this actually make the offensive line better? We knew going into camp this was going to be the group that was going to be looked upon the most, because with so many weapons all over the field on offense, and then having a front seven led by Jordan Davis, those guys was really about gelling. Because you already got an injury at the offensive line that was already going to be retooled, how important is it versatility for this offensive line? People ask, do you recruit guards? Do you recruit tackles? Like, no, they recruit offensive linemen. I need a guy that can play multiple positions. And when you talk about having extreme talent across the board, how much better can these guys potentially be before they play Clemson? Because they're going to be probably getting tried out at different positions each day.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Georgia's done an exceptional job of, since Kirby Smart's taken over, especially during the Sam Pittman era, and even now with Matt Luke, is they have prioritized versatility, positional versatility along that offensive front. You look at a guy like Tate Ratledge. I mean, he's a tackle in high school. I mean, I don't know if he's athletically gifted enough to play tackle in the SEC, but if you threw him out there, he probably could figure it out. You look at a guy like Jamari Sawyer. He could legitimately play all five positions on that offensive line. That they have a bunch of guys, even Dayton, or looking at a guy, like Austin Blaschke, who is a lesser-known name. He's a swing football player. He can do just about anything on that offensive line, and I would imagine due to this injury, he'll probably travel at this point in this football game as well down there, from the South Georgia area. So I think Georgia's done an exceptional job at recruiting football players that are positionally versatile. And when this type of stuff happens, which my dad used to tell me all the time, injuries are no more common in the game of football like turnovers and first downs. Something like this is going to happen every single year. And if you recruit the position with positional versatility in mind, you're going to be a lot better off when this type of stuff inevitably happens. So I think they've done a great job there. Now it's just figuring out what the best continuity lineup looks like, right? I mean, Ben, you've worked combo blocks before. You understand how it is. Each guy you work with does things a little bit differently, and that subsequently changes how you go about doing what you do. So it's all about, over the next couple of weeks and leading up to this Clemson game, figuring out the best five that not only is the most talented five, but the best five that works in best continuity together. And I trust Matt Luke and Georgia's offensive staff decision-making in making that process and making those decisions.
And again, just underway with practice. Still some time before you get into game week preparations. Brooks Austin, Dogs Daily on SI.com, joining us here on 3 and Out. Brooks, always a pleasure. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, we'll talk to you next Monday.
Appreciate it. Brooks Austin joining us here on 3 and Out. As again, an injury early in camp, Ben, but you're not into game week preparations, so you still have plenty of time to kind of figure out who's the best guy for the job there.
Yeah, and I do agree. With something Austin said. I mean, it's not always going to be pretty, but listen, everybody got to go out there and make a name for themselves. Injuries early are always much easier because you already know what you're having to deal with. But that's why they stockpile 5 stars, Kevin. They just add another guy.
We've got so much more to get to here on 3 Out again as Georgia rolling through fall practice as they get ready for that big Clemson game coming up. We've got a lot to get to in hour number 2. Take 3 around the corner, Hall of Fame weekend. Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, will join us. He's got his Georgia preview up there on SouthernPigskin.com. We'll look to chat with him about that. This is 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here on this Monday. Kevin, VJ, and Ben. We'll hear from Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, coming up next hour. Also, we'll look at the Hall of Fame inductions over the weekend. We'll talk to Ben about that. Ben, does it feel weird watching guys you played with getting inducted into the Hall of Fame?
It doesn't. It doesn't. It shows
played against, I guess.
Well, yeah, it doesn't. It shows why these guys are who they are. Like you find your. I mean, I played during the prime years of Peyton Manning, the days of Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and Dallas Clark. Basically, we about to get the brakes beat off us every single time we play these guys. Charles Woodson. I mean, Troy Polamalu, Calvin Johnson, John Lynch. I mean, Alan Faneca. It looked like it was a Pittsburgh Steelers reunion out there when you look at how many Pittsburgh Steelers went in. But you have it for these guys. That's where the greatest of all time, go, to rest. And Edgerrin James. I mean, he said I went from a gold teeth to a gold jacket. I mean, it's so many great guys that went in. I'm happy for all of those guys, and I'm blessed to be able to grace the same field of those guys. But that's where the elite go, and I couldn't be more happy for every one of those guys.
And I've heard you talk about going up against Peyton Manning a number of times. Obviously, you played him, I think, twice a year in the division. In your mind, what made him so great? Because you said, man, we sat there on the sidelines just watching, going, we can't stop him. I mean, what made Peyton Peyton?
What made Peyton was there are quarterbacks and there's the art of playing the position. He showed the art of playing the quarterback position. He didn't take nothing for granted, from the pre-snap motions to snapping the ball 2 seconds before to make sure the safety's going to show you what kind of coverage they're in, to getting to him and Jeff Saturday going back and forth with the blocking scheme. I mean, he was furious with it, and it didn't matter if the score was 50-0 or 10-0. I mean, the way he played the game was the same. It was beautiful to watch, but the problem is I was watching him against us doing these things. But Peyton Manning he's the ultimate quarterback. I mean, you look at the postseason career, you look at the regular season career, you look at what he meant to the position. I mean, he can flat out do it all, man. I mean, if you're trying to play the quarterback position, there are two guys you're gonna look at: Tom Brady, for whom was sitting there saying things about freaking Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning himself. Somebody asked Peyton Manning to write up a route, and he ended up talking for an hour and a half about how many different concepts he could do within one route. I mean, he was a little computer on the field. There's nothing you can do about it. The only thing can save you with Peyton Manning is hopefully you sack him, hopefully hopefully the receivers drop the ball, or he just don't show up that day. Because if he did, it was going to be a long day.
So when your defense came off the field, did you give them guys, what are you doing out there? Like, come on.
No, I just be like, man, you want some Gatorade? No, I just be like, you want some Gatorade? Because it's bad. I mean, think about it as this. I mean, Marvin Harrison already in the Hall of Fame. Reggie Wayne probably is going to be in the Hall of Fame. And Dallas Clark, I mean, BJ, he might be right on the outside looking in. But if he did get in, who's going to say anything? It was just hard. It was just hard to believe that somebody could play the position like this. Like, dude, there's no wasted motion. And he even said this. Peyton Manning said, when people say you got to have a big arm to be a great quarterback, he says, I threw a lot of wobbly passes, but my job was to get it to the guy catching the thing. So he was humble. I mean, and obviously he was an incredible player. You knew he was going to be first ballot, but yeah, Peyton Manning gets paid to be himself now. They pay him to be Peyton. So, hey, man, I got to see him in his prime. I had a bunch of Tennessee Titans fans who was also Tennessee Vols fans forgetting what the hell they was sitting there cheering for him. No, dude, you don't cheer for Peyton Manning. He's not a Vol anymore, man. He's on the other side. But shout out to Peyton Manning, man. Like I said, got a chance to shake his hand before. He's one of the greatest to ever do it.
Maybe the Tennessee Titans mascot should have been Peyton Manning and not T-Rat.
I would have knocked that. Oh my God, I would knock that out. I'm scared. I'm Peyton Manning. I'm tackling him. I'm pulling the little head off that look like a rat.
We got Take 3 coming up around the corner, hour 2. Next, it is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube page at ESPN Coastal on YouTube. Good to have you here, 3 and Out. On this Monday, we're talking some Hall of Fame. Big weekend there in Canton. Of course, we got preseason football for the Falcons and Jags. Jags with the Browns, Falcons with the Titans. Who imagined that would have happened? I'm sure that was merely coincidence. The Falcons and Titans are the first preseason game for each team right out of the gate with Arthur Smith. But we'll look at the Hall of Fame weekend that was. Some legendary players getting enshrined this weekend. Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, will join us coming up in about 30 minutes here on the show as well. We'll talk Georgia football with him. But first, let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. All right, fellas, who has been the biggest addition for the Braves? And I will say biggest addition since the season started to kind of clarify that for you as well. Who's been the biggest addition for the Atlanta Braves?
All right, you were talking in the show meeting about a couple of guys, and I agree with you. What Soler has done has been absolutely remarkable. The power has been a major boost to this lineup, but I'm going to make a little bit of a prediction with an answer for the future. I'm going to say Richard Rodriguez, because what he's done has been really impressive. He's had 5 appearances for Atlanta. He has not given up a run. He has not given up a hit in his last 4 appearances, and he's walked one batter in those 5 appearances. Now, here's why I'm saying it's
he needs to be in there instead of Will Smith.
Right. Well, here's why I'm making a little bit of a predictive, answer here, because we saw Will Smith just have more struggles over the weekend. I think he now has 6 losses on the year, which is not good for a closer. I know Chris Martin got the opportunity to close yesterday. He came in and gave up a couple of, really hard hit balls, and the Nats scored, pulled within 1. I'm guessing / thinking / projecting that Rodriguez is going to be moved to the Braves closer position, and you're going to see this success he's had in a setup role transition nicely to the closer role, which is the job he did for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So yes, Soler, I think, has just been a star, but kind of with a fluid answer moving forward, I'm going to say Richard Rodriguez.
Now, Kevin, because I don't know when he got to the team, and I'm gonna give you my reason why. When did the Braves add Huascar Noah? When did he get added?
He was already in the organization when the season started, so doesn't count.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just making sure because I ain't want to say nothing crazy, but I will go with Soler. I mean, Kevin, I know you saying since the season started. I'm gonna tell you why, because it goes back to the deadline. You were saying, what are the Braves gonna add? Do they add a bat? Do they add somebody to the bullpen? What I like about Soler is, once again, DJ and Kevin, you add to a lineup that was lacking, right? You know what you had in Austin Riley, you know what you had, in Freddie Free. You know what you had in Ozzie Albies and even Dansby Mansby. Now you add another bat because let's face it, you were trying to make sure that even though Ronald Acuna Jr.'s impact is no longer there, that you still have somebody that can go out there and make Ronald Acuna Jr. type impact. Not the same impact, but has flashes of it. I like the way Soler has came in and fit right in. One thing I like about him being as an addition, you don't have to worry. You didn't have to worry about the person having get up to speed. So for me, I'm gonna go with Soler, BJ, because like you said, hits for power, can also leave the yard, and like I said, whenever you need that boost in the lineup, he seems to be providing that pop. So for me, I'm gonna go with Soler.
I think Soler's been, to me, he's the guy that on paper you're like, oh my gosh, you got a dude batting 190 something to come in and help supplement your offense, and the change of scenery for him has been amazing because he has been a power input that was much needed to help out Freddie Freeman, Ozzie Albies there at the top of that lineup. And again, I think a welcome addition. Not that the other guys, you could make a strong case for Adam Duvall being back, which BJ you wanted from the very beginning. But to me, it's Jorge Soler, a guy who led the American League in home runs, having a pretty rough go of it in Kansas City this year, comes to the Braves and has turned his season around at the most opportune time, by the way, which is August, soon to be September.
Let me ask you this, Kevin, because not only did you bring in guys like Soler and Duvall, in the outfield potentially to stabilize the offense this year, do you think Soler, maybe most specifically, is playing himself potentially into a long-term contract, maybe with the Braves? Could he be a part of the Braves' future beyond just this season?
Maybe. Again, I think, who do you value to go along with Acuna? Because Acuna will be back soon. I guess so. We had a comment saying not without the DH. Well, Ben, I know they have a collective bargaining agreement coming up, as he commented there on Facebook. So, as much as I hate to say it, you may very well have the DH next year. Oh man, that makes me want to go throw up off the show to have to say that. And again, I know people like offense, but Max Fried seems to be doing all right, man. When he goes up there, you got some guys that can hit as well. He mentioned Ozuna. I still don't think Ozuna's coming back, man. Ben, I appreciate that comment, but I just don't think Ozuna's coming back. If they have to eat it, I guess they have to eat it, but I don't think he's coming back in 2022 to the Braves. We got to move along. Speaking of the Braves, though, take two. Is Freddie Freeman having another MVP level season?
Well, he's been fantastic, over the last couple of months, and that stat line is suddenly starting to look a whole lot more Freddie Freeman-like. He's currently at 294. At the rate he's been going, you assume he's going to be up over 300 soon. 24 home runs, 63 RBI. Freddie Freeman has been spectacular. I don't know that I would call him a front runner for the MVP right now. Now, we still have, some pretty important baseball games still to come. But I would mention, Kevin, maybe a couple of guys in front of him right now, even though he's been fantastic and has absolutely played his way into the conversation. I think the hardest guy to kind of account for, because you don't know when he's going to be back, is Tatis. Because when you look in the National League, his numbers are still overwhelming, and you don't know when he's going to be fully healthy. But as of right now, Tatis is batting .292. He has 31 home runs. He has 70 RBI. He has 23 stolen bases. And, Kevin, his WAR is over 5, the wins above replacement number. That is absurd. That is, like, historically relevant. So what Tatis is doing statistically is unparalleled. Now, again, is he going to be out for another month? Is he going to be back in a week or two? You don't know yet. A couple of other guys I would look at, Nick Castellanos with Cincinnati, and I know he's not necessarily a superstar, but he leads the National League in hits. He's hitting .326. He has 59 RBI and 18 home runs for a Reds team that has 61 wins. And I think if you go back to the beginning of the season, not many people were saying, hey, watch out for the Reds in the National League. And Castellanos has been the best hitter in the league for a team that has over 60 wins. Manny Machado has been great for the Padres. He's hitting .287. He has 20 home runs and 75 RBI for a team that has 64 wins. So I think you look at Manny Machado. Kevin, your guy Bryce Harper is having a great year. He's batting over 300. The home run numbers are there. 20. The RBI total's not off the charts, but I think some of that's because of the construction of the lineup. And the Phillies are obviously in first place, but Tatis to me is the X factor. And then I think you probably look at Castellanos, Machado, and Harper in some order.
I mean, to say all that, BJ, the answer to your question, Kevin, yes, of course, Freddie Freeman is having another MVP caliber season, because you got to look at not just the numbers, but look at what he had to overcome. I mean, went through the early season slump to be able to come back and get back to Freddie Freeman, type numbers, and he doesn't have his partner in crime anymore, batting leadoff and Ronald Acuna Jr. Don't have Marcell Ozuna, who's been out almost the entire season. So when you look at what Freddie Freeman has, what he has on his shoulders and the pressure that he has, I would say he is having it. Because, Kevin, think about it. Maybe, I'll go to you. I think he was pressing when the season first started, trying to live up to that MVP status every single time he was at the plate. Then he kind of settled down, kind of got back to who he was. Because if anybody on this team, not named Ronald Acuna Jr., has earned the benefit of the doubt, it is Freddie Freeman. We knew that he wasn't going to stay in the slump, and then now that he's no longer in it, he's putting up big-time numbers. BJ, I heard all those guys you just mentioned. The last time I checked, Freddie Freeman plays for the Braves. He don't got to be with Tatis. He is ridiculous. I mean, I didn't even know 6'4" guys could even play freaking shortstop. The guy is a freak. But for me, I do think Freddie Freeman is having, another banner year and an MVP type season, because it's not just what he does individually. Is he propelling his team to win the NL East? I would say yes, because Ronald Acuna Jr. gone, problem, but you still got Freddie Freeman. If Freddie Freeman is gone and they still got Ronald, I don't know if they will still have the same record.
Got a comment, maybe Austin Riley. I think he's played well, but again, I think Freddie Freeman, to get where he's been in the last month or so, has really stepped it up to another level offensively here coming into the middle portion of August. Moving along, take three. What was your favorite moment from the Olympics? beginning in whatever in between, what was your favorite moment that you'll take away from this year's Tokyo Olympics?
Yeah, we recently talked about Caleb Dressel, the young man from Jacksonville, the Jacksonville area, winning all the golds and setting all the records. That was really cool. I was also glad to see the Team USA men's team, win the gold and play well. Kevin Durant, I mean, what an Olympics for Kevin Durant and for him to just step up and be the superstar that he is. And remember, it wasn't just a couple of games here or there. There were people all around the country saying, oh, this team's not going to medal. This team is going to, they're going to get bounced early. They are, not up to par with not only the history of this team, but even some of the better teams around the world. And we saw Kevin Durant say, nope, not dealing with that. I'm going to take over. So shout out to Team USA for getting it done and getting the gold.
For me, it's Allison Felix. Allison Felix is the most decorated Olympian of all time, breaking Carl Lewis record with 11. I mean, people thought that when she was pregnant, would she ever get back to her Olympic form? And she did. Got third, I think, in the 400-meter finals, and obviously got first in the 4x400 meters, defending the USA crown. So shout out to Allison Felix, who won. Told a big brand. I'm not gonna name that brand because I wear that brand, but told his big brand, if y'all don't need me, I'll start my own brand, speaking up for pregnant women. So now when a woman athlete does have a contract and she's pregnant, they cannot dock their pay, because I think with her they docked her pay like 70% when she was pregnant. That's why she ended up going with her own brand. But since then, added two more medals to her resume. And so shout out to Allison Felix, the most decorated track athlete of all time for America.
My favorite part was the end, and not for the reason that Ben. I'm not saying that. Hear me out. Favorite part is the end. Why? Because what was the talking points in the weeks leading up? We shouldn't be doing this. It's never going to happen. It's going to be a disaster. We'll never get it in. It's not a good idea. Had the whole Olympic Games seem to go off without too many major of a hitch. You had some athletes that had to move back out of there due to COVID protocols, but all in all, you put on a full Olympic Games. We're able to do that and have a successful event. And I think, again, that shows despite restrictions, despite certain things you have to do, things can be done. We can put our minds to it and figure out a way to still make it happen. And we made the Olympics happen there in Tokyo, and they were put on successfully. That's what I take away from it. That's my favorite part of it, because going in, there was a lot of people saying, should we not even do this? Should we, like 2 days before, should we not do this? And they were able to make it happen and pull off a very successful Olympics in Tokyo. We'll come back Hall of Fame weekend around the NFL, and Matt Smith joins us in about 15 minutes. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here on this Monday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. We'll hear from Matt Smith, Southern Pigskin, in just a little bit. We'll talk some Georgia football with him. But the Hall of Fame was taking place over the weekend. The 2021 class: Drew Pearson, Tom Flores, Peyton Manning, John Lynch, Calvin Johnson, Alan Faneca, Charles Woodson, Jimmy Johnson, others going in to Canton. Just absolutely iconic class. Ben, I was trying to make an old joke earlier. It's like you feel weird with all these guys you played with going to the Hall of Fame, i.e., like there was a point in my life where I'm like, I'm not that bad. Then all of a sudden I was like, man, I'm older than everybody in college football. Then it was there is not anybody playing professional sports that is older than me. Well, except maybe Tom Brady right now, but just by a little bit. Outside of that, I'm older than everybody else in the league. I'm getting old. I don't like it. So I'm trying to get that feeling out of you. Like, what's it like when, like, man, guys I play with now have been out of the league long enough to get gold jackets and all that? It's got to be nuts.
It is. But you know what? I mean, we're not getting older, Kevin. We're getting better. We're like fine wine. We're only getting better with time. That's what I tell people, and that's what I'm sticking to it. But, I mean, you just happy for him, right? I mean, Charles Woodson did it the opposite way. He wasn't the guy that broke down film that's sitting there in his house, breaking down. He'll say, listen, tell me who I'm covering. Let's go play ball. You see him getting, and then he's the reason why, BJ, everybody wants to wear 21 because of Prime. Everybody wants to wear 24 because of Charles Woodson and maybe even Champ Bailey. Peyton Manning is the gold standard of quarterbacking. Troy Polamalu, listen, what you guys don't understand about him when he come out for pregame, all that hair, that mane he got, is tied up in a ponytail during pregame. When he pull that rubber band out and go like this, you better be somebody else. And I just happen to be on the field with him, having to deal with it. What I love the most about everybody that got enshrined was Edgerrin James, because Edgerrin James was talking about being himself. See, Edgerrin James, when he was in the NFL, his dreadlocks, they weren't celebrated. His gold teeth, they weren't celebrated. He told Jim Irsay he appreciates you allowing Edge to be Edge. And he was saying, listen, he said, I was in the jungle and my hair was my mane. He said, that's why I wore it the way I did it. From a gold tee to a gold jacket, to talk about how he grew up without his dad, right? He said, Mom, you told me I was going to be the man in the house. And I didn't take that for granted. So many great stories, so many great people. Calvin Johnson, I mean, Megatron was talking about dealing with the pain of being Megatron, going through what he had to go through to get out there for his teammates. There was so many great stories, so many great guys. Alan Faneca, I mean, it was incredible, and I'm happy for every single player. Like I said, when people go, hey, man, what does it take to be a Hall of Famer? You start mentioning those names, and people say, all right, that's how good you are. So it was great for everybody that went in, for everybody that thought that Peyton Manning and Tom Brady was rivals. Man, they best friends, man. Anything Peyton Manning do, Tom Brady was getting booed like the freaking commissioner. Tom, boo. These people are, I love it. I love it. But shout out to the class of 2021, going down in history as definitely the greatest hair class, from Edgerrin James to Troy Polamalu to freaking Jimmy Johnson. That's the best hair you're gonna see in a Hall of Fame induction class. But Jimmy Johnson,
get gold combs, right? Gold combs to go with their gold jackets for Hall of Fame.
I'm happy for every last one of them. All those guys are deserving. A lot of those guys are first ballot Hall of Famers. And Kevin, like I said, my mom looked at it different. When my mom heard everybody going in, she said, these guys are really young going in. I said, ain't they young? Just some of you used to, Jimmy Johnson I ain't talking about his age, but yeah, man, these guys are still relatively young and they did it their way, and so many great stories. People say, can you talk about the position without talking about the players that just went in? Edgerrin James is the headliner. I know everybody want to make it about Peyton and Charles and Calvin and Jimmy Johnson, and I get it. But Edgerrin James, man, I mean, South Florida's best. I mean, and BJ, you talking about the Miami running backs. I don't know if it get better than Edge, man. Taking nothing away with Clint Portis and Willis McGahee and Jared Payton and so on and so forth. But shout out to the 2021 Hall of Fame class. I know they're going to always say the current class was the best. Shout out to John Lynch as well. Finally, the back end of that Tampa 2 defense in Tampa, with the Tampa Bay Bucks, they finally got John Lynch in. And I still got some bruises on the back of my neck to prove that he could still do it when I was in there.
Yeah, some incredible stories and perspectives. And you think about, the legacies of some of these players, and obviously everybody's an all-time great when you're in the Hall of Fame. I was thinking about Deion Sanders earlier, Ben, because today's his birthday, and we've talked. No, hold on. And
you think about Deion every day.
Well, true. But we were talking about Deion, or we have in the past about, hey, Deion's the greatest corner of all time, and there are certain positions where that's up for debate. Who's the best this of all time, the best that. When you look at Charles Woodson, and I know he played a couple of different positions later in his career in the secondary, But when you think about the totality of his career, won a Heisman Trophy, won a national championship in college, was Rookie of the Year, NFL Defensive Player of the Year, won a Super Bowl, like 5 or 6 time All-Pro. I mean, when you talk about Charles Woodson, and yes, obviously Calvin Johnson and Edgerrin James and John Lynch and, all these guys, Calvin Johnson, though, or Charles Woodson, though, Ben, can you make an argument that he might be right up there with Deion as maybe the second best corner of all time when you look at his resume?
Yes, and what Charles Woodson is doing, BJ, he's threatening a guy like Deion being the best. It's supposed to be debatable, right? It's never ever supposed to be clear cut. Because there's the thing about Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson started with the Raiders, right? Really became a shutdown corner. And when you look at the impact he did for the slot corner, because when he was with Green Bay, he was in the slot. Then he came back with the Raiders and started playing safety and was making Pro Bowls at safety. Charles Woodson is one of my heroes for this reason alone. I wasn't a guy that watched a lot of tape. I watched it. I would take it out my locker. I would stick it in, the DVD players, telling my age again, and I would go home and I would watch it. Charles Woodson said, "I'm a football player, man. Put me in front of him and let's go to work. I'm not the greatest at schemes. I'm not the greatest at making sure that, I'm playing inside when I'm supposed to be playing outside. But if you put that ball in the air, you're going to have to deal with it." Charles Woodson was the true BJ. And this is really insult to injury. When Charles Woodson won the Heisman, who was a part of that? Peyton Manning was one of the guys he beat. Randy Moss was one of the guys he beat. So to know that when people go, "Hey man, has there ever been a defensive player win the Heisman?" Yeah, who did he win it against? Peyton Manning, Randy Moss. So yeah, Charles Woodson went to Michigan and he was Mr. Ohio. So the guy is disrespectful, and I love it. But yeah, Charles Woodson, BJ, is up there because his resume speaks for itself. Won the Super Bowl with Green Bay, got drafted. Got drafted by the Silver and Black. Ended up with the Silver and Black. Told the safety out of Mississippi State that wears number 24 now with with the Raiders saying, "Listen, man, I'm the real 24. I know you wearing it, but I'm." So yeah, shout out to Charles Woodson, BJ. We know that Deion is the GOAT. My daughter's birthday is the day, by the way. So I didn't know that my daughter and Deion share the same birthday. BJ, you'll be like, "Your daughter gonna be special. She's gonna be special even if she wasn't born on the same day." Deion is. But shout out to the Hall of Fame class. It is take nothing away from other Hall of Fames. The most prestigious Hall of Fame got to be the NFL because it's so hard to get in. So listen, man, whenever I get into the Hall of Fame, that's right, I'm not going to get into that's another story for another day.
Ben, I just want you to go back and address the fact that BJ on this show just a minute ago said, quote, "So I was sitting around the other day just thinking about Deion Sanders." I'm like, yeah, that's what
Kevin. No, Kevin, this is what it is. From now on, when I ever make something like we ain't talking about nothing Florida, and I bring it up, BJ better not say nothing. BJ said,
"Listen, I brought up Deion to talk about Charles Woodson. That there was a point. I brought up Deion to talk about how incredible and awesome and amazing Charles Woodson is. Charles Woodson, one of my favorite football players of all time. And you look at his resume, he's right up there for the best ever." Right up there for the best ever. So no, it's all love. I'm talking about Deion and Charles Woodson together as being right there as maybe the two best of all time.
BJ, you also went from not being a Tim Tebow fan because it's going to be a distraction to, and listen, man, if he's good enough, Shaq going to be number 1. He probably going to be number 2 or number 3. What you want me to say? This is what's coming out of camp. So so Tim Tebow, BJ, and I'm telling you right now, if you get a Tim Tebow jersey, I'm going to slap you with baby powder.
Listen, I'm not getting a Tim Tebow jersey. I was just waiting for you to come on and talk about how good friends you are with Calvin Johnson. Does Kevin know that you were hanging out with Calvin Johnson on the field at Georgia Tech and y'all were telling stories? And I didn't know y'all were best friends. I get up there and you and Calvin Johnson are just off to the side. I'm like looking, going, "Hey, Ben, can you?" Nope. You were just
no. I took advantage of the situation, right? I took advantage of the situation. There go Calvin Johnson. There go Joe Ham. So I went up to him and started talking to him. "Man, it's crazy about all the young boys out here, man. I bet you don't want to run no routes." And I kind of stuck my hand, around the shoulder, took some pictures or whatever. And he probably looked at me like, "Who is it?" See, he don't know if I'm a dad or one of these kids, out here trying to get recruited, or, he don't know. I'm like, "How you doing, Calvin, man? My son trying to go to Georgia Tech. His name Ben. He ain't 12. He ain't here right now." No, BJ, I took advantage of the situation. Then I'm not gonna say what one of the kids said about Calvin Johnson. I'm gonna say that off the air. But yes, BJ, Richie, who used to work with us, was like, dang, Ben, I know Calvin Johnson. I'm like, I know Calvin Johnson. They go Jeff Collins, hug him. I know everybody. But this is the problem, BJ. Even to get off the subject a little bit, when Joe Ham tried to throw the pass to Calvin Johnson, they wouldn't let him. They actually slapped the pass down. Slapped the pass down. I was like, not on my watch, old man. You just called Joe.
Exactly. Look, that is the big, don't set me up for that. No. If they're going to run some garbage like that, if I'm out there and they're going to throw Joe Ham, if I have an opportunity, no, I'm slapping it down. I'm not letting that happen. I'm the ruiner of fun, like BJ.
They told them.
I'm for 99-0 running up the score, all that. No, we're not letting anything cheap happen, even in a spring game. Not having it.
They say, "Oh my God, Calvin Johnson's on the field." Joe Hamilton, the ball got knocked down. I'm like, "What is y'all doing?"
Hey, nothing cheap, nothing deep.
That's right. BJ, I was sitting around the other day just thinking about Dale Murphy. No reason at all. Just thinking about Dale Murphy. We'll come back. Matt Smith will join us. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here. 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Glad you are with us. The countdown to the start of the college football season is on, and Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, is previewing the SEC. And I know, BJ, a couple of teams each day here the next several days. Looking ahead today, we look at Georgia. It's up on SouthernPigskin.com right now by Matt Smith, who joins us here on 3 and Out. Matt, welcome. How are you?
Hey, guys. Doing well. Certainly a sad day yesterday in the sport, losing a giant like Bobby Bowden. And I know for all of us being of a fairly comparable age, that was the program in the 90s when we were growing up. Florida State was the model, but 91 years old, heck of a life, 2 sons who had undefeated seasons as head coaches at the FBS level. So thoughts and prayers with that family, but what a run for the Bowden family, who's probably done as much, maybe outside of the Mannings, for Southern football as anyone in the history of the sport.
No, absolutely. Well said there, Matt. I know to transition from that, we're getting ready for the season. I know you have been very staunch in the corner of playoffs, national championship, even or bust for Georgia, and you kind of spell some of that out with your preseason predictions, even though you think they might stumble right out of the gate against Clemson.
I do. That's one we've kind of been thinking about all summer, which way we're leaning. Didn't really have a strong lean until early in the summer. Just thinking about through the matchups, I think the best unit on the field is that Clemson front seven. A lot of those guys, some of their great recruits from a year or two back now have some experience. Georgia's offensive line, pretty young last year, but overall I was fairly unimpressed with what they put together in Matt Luke's first year. A little bit more experience this year, but as I'm sure you guys talked about today, now potential question at center if Warren Erickson's availability is certainly up in the air for that Clemson game. So given that, I do have Clemson's front seven as the strongest unit in that game. I think that will be enough for Clemson to win the game, and they're home away from home there in Charlotte. But as I'm sure we'll get to, I don't think that will derail the dog season from a big picture perspective.
Well, there we go, Matt. You have Georgia running the table throughout the regular season and beating Alabama in the SEC championship game. If they're going to bounce back from a potential week 1 loss and run the table and beat Alabama, who has to step up? What unit has to lead the way?
Yeah, I think the offensive line, like we talked about, needs to be a little bit better last year. They got the running backs. I mean, those guys, you got 4 guys who should be able to contribute. They're all a little bit different, at least maybe 2 and 2 if you want to go that route with Zeus White and Kendall Milton, kind of your power backs, with James Cook and Kenny McIntosh, more of your slashers, can maybe line up in the slot for you, but get 2 of those guys on the field at the same time, so you're really not sure which way they're going to go. I think that offense could really be diverse. You got the quarterback with the big arm who can make all the throws now with JT Daniels. And if that receiving core can come along, they're battling some injuries there, but really impressed with some of those young guys that saw time last year, and Karis Jackson and Jermaine Burton. If they can come along now as second-year starters, maybe you get George Pickens back later in the season, perhaps. And Eric Gilbert, of course, the wild card at tight end. So, I just kind of went through the whole offense there, but certainly the receiving core taking another step forward, and the offensive line just being a little bit better than they were last year. I don't have a ton of concerns about the defense. Certainly some key players to replace, but they've recruited so well. Not worried. Plenty of depth there, even if some of those guys don't quite pan out or take a little bit longer to develop.
And man, we always talking about the talent gap between Georgia and Florida, which you talk about, in your story on Southern Pigskin. I know you got Florida finishing third, going 9-3. Is there a way? Alabama might be just too far away, but if there a way that they can find a way to make it a game in Jacksonville? Could they potentially go 10-2 instead of 9-3?
Oh, of course. I mean, on game day, I'd rather have Dan Mullen than Kirby Smart. But, in late December when you're signing classes, I think Kirby's proven to be far, far superior at this point. But in a one-shot deal with the extra week to prepare, and I think the key for Florida is going to be getting to that game at 6-1 with just that one SEC loss. And regardless of what Georgia does, you're playing for first place that day in Jacksonville. And, Florida's got a very tough early schedule. But if they get in that situation, they were close a couple years ago. And then last year, despite that early deficit, just really rocked them and got a chance to reclaim the SEC East. So in a one-shot deal, I don't know what I'm going to get from that Florida defense. They were very disappointing last year. Just the old Todd Grantham lapses were just way too many. But if they can come along, again, you just got to get to that game 6-1. That will be the deal. And if they are, they can pull it off. But again, I just think the talent gap is more severe than it was last year. Even though Georgia had the advantage last year, it just felt like the quarterback situation favored Florida so much that I picked the Gators. A lot of us picked the Gators, and they finally got it done. But this year, I think that reverses. I think the gap's just too small for Florida to repeat.
Matt, you look at Georgia, you said loaded up. How well are they able to absorb an injury? Obviously, we've already talked about an injury along the offensive line, and part of that is getting through the season healthy. Is Georgia suited to absorb an injury or two at a key spot and still keep it rolling, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it depends where it is. At running back, sure, you got plenty of options. Receiver, a little bit concerning there, especially adding one onto the Pickens injury from the spring. And offensive line, like I said, that was a big one that caught my eye yesterday, and that's certainly something to monitor here over the next couple of weeks as we get closer and closer to the Clemson game. Defensively, I think the front seven's going to be fine. We don't know necessarily who some of those bodies are, replacing guys like Ojulari and such at outside linebacker. Corner, not too worried about. Safety might be another one there. Losing LeCount, kind of got 1.5 starters back. Something there might be a little bit concerning, but again, only a couple positions there, just given how well they've recruited and how much depth they have, would really raise your eyes as a potential concern, but that definitely was one a couple days ago with the offensive line.
Matt, is JT Daniels a really good quarterback who's going to put up good numbers, or is he a great quarterback who can win a championship? And what's going to determine the difference?
That's a good question. It might come down to the talent around him, such thing as protection. And if you're looking for one concern, I pumped up Daniels all off season. Again, I was really impressed how he looked as a freshman at USC, despite the team not having a good record. He's played, I think, 5 games over the last 2 years. Got hurt early in the 2019 season, only played those 4 games last year until he got cleared. But probably just accuracy, poise, comfort. Didn't play in a lot of big games, Last year, the USC 2018 team that I just alluded to, not very good, so didn't have those really big spotlight games. Georgia was pretty much out of the picture last year by the time he took over. The Peach Bowl, bowl game, big game, but didn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. So certainly that opener, the schedule eases up a bit after that. But then when they head to Jacksonville, are the lights big enough? Is he ready to withstand the lights of a big game like the cocktail party? So that's all. SEC stadiums are different. He didn't play in any full ones last year, at least. Playing in front of 15,000 fans is a lot different than 75,000 in Charlotte, 80,000 in Jacksonville, 85, 90 in Auburn. That's tough. Can he handle those big moments? This is a different ball game in the SEC, and if he can do it, I think this team can win the national title. But again, playing only 5 games over the last 2 years, still a bit of an unknown, I would say.
What do you think is going to be harder though? Matt, I understand that postseason aspirations. This is supposed to be the team led by JT Daniels in that front seven, and adding guys like Eric Gilbert, Darion Kendrick on defense. But Kirby Smart is going to go undefeated in the SEC play. I mean, that's something that we've never seen him do. And I do think that 2018 team is about as good as the team he's going to have, even though the 2021 team is just as good. You think that Georgia, even if they do win against Clemson, even though you got them losing, you think they're going to go undefeated in the SEC play this year?
Yeah, I think it probably helps their chances if they do lose to Clemson of going undefeated in the league then, because they know they really can't slip up. If you slip up in the SEC, combine that with a loss to Clemson, well, then maybe it doesn't even matter. It might when you get to the SEC championship game, assuming that loss isn't to Florida. If it is, you're probably not even going to Atlanta. But if they would stumble to, say, Auburn, you might be out of the playoff picture by the time you get to the SEC championship game. So that might be a wake-up call. They've had kind of a mulligan in years past when they went to Baton Rouge and got popped, had the disgusting home loss to South Carolina 2 years ago. Maybe it's good for them. And just looking at the schedule, it's a 3 road game year in the SEC with the Florida game counting as a road game. Other 3 road games are all first-year head coaches. Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, Brian Harsin at Auburn, Josh Heupel at Tennessee. You get those potential more tricky opponents at home like Kentucky and Missouri. So just nothing on there really concerns me after Clemson. And as I've been saying all summer, if you go 11-2 and lose to Clemson and Alabama, that's a really bad year with what I think is the second-best roster overall in the country. So I know those blips of the past couple of years, 17, 18, 19, all really good teams, but had that one ugly day. I think if they get that loss out of the way against Clemson, I think that'll whip them back into shape a little bit, narrow the focus, knowing that they really can't afford another stumble, and they'll be battled in the rest of the way against teams they really all should beat on paper at least.
Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, joining us here on 3 and Out. And Matt, you look at Georgia's position here in the SEC East, and you talked about that Florida game. How much does the SEC schedule help them out? That the East is looking like Florida, maybe a team like Kentucky or Missouri might put forth a better season than we expect. But are you really talking about Florida, maybe Auburn as the resume boosters if they lose to Clemson in week 1 as you project in terms of keeping them in that discussion? Or is it all really just, hey, if they win the SEC championship, that doesn't matter who they play?
Yeah, sure. I mean, 12-1 is fine. I have zero concerns that would not get them in the playoff by any means, regardless of whether the loss is to Clemson or to Alabama or I guess even to Florida in that sense. So no concerns there. I guess schedule-wise, you could argue if they lose a tight game to Clemson and then a tight game to Alabama, maybe they could still be one of the top 4. But I think with the SEC East being so down this year, I would kind of rule it out, especially given the Titans we have atop the Big 12 and the Big 10 right now that are probably going to be at worst 12-1 league champions. So I do think that's the only place where you could point to the schedule as hurting Georgia. But again, I think it's such a blessing for them. With Florida getting Alabama this year, with the potential tricky road games for Florida, Kentucky, and Missouri, those are home games for Georgia. It all just kind of works in their favor, and that's the reasons why I've said for the last 6 months now, I can't go national title or bust because there's too many variables. But anything short of getting to the college football playoff and maybe even winning a game there, you could argue is a disappointment for Georgia this year.
Well, Matt, to that end, finally, I mean, what type of pressure comes with that? Because really there are only right now maybe Alabama and Clemson around college football, maybe Ohio State, where if you don't make the college football playoff, it is a clear and inarguable disappointment. I don't think that that's been the case for Georgia quite yet, but so much hype around this team, so much excitement. Is that something the program is ready for, to have a season where if you don't make the Final Four, people are going to come out and say this was not good enough?
I sure hope so. And I don't think it's unreasonable for Georgia fans to start to wonder, like, are we ever going to get there with Kirby if it doesn't happen this year? Again, if they lose a close national title game, I'm not going to worry about that. But if they do have that 11-2 season, I think that's fair. And I think for Oklahoma as well, we can maybe consider them an SEC team now if they're about to join the league. I think a similar situation where everything kind of lines up for them this year. Alabama's losing quite a bit. I think the top 5 is separated from the rest of the pack, but I think within that top 5, I think this sets up as of the year for Georgia and Oklahoma, teams who have gotten there, taken a swing, but haven't quite landed the punch they needed to knock out Alabama and Clemson in the past couple of years, where this is probably the year to do it. And if they fall short and they get back there and Oklahoma gets run again by one of the top 3 teams like they did with Alabama and LSU, I think you point to Lincoln Riley. He thought, well, if it didn't happen this year, when? You know, as good a coaches as those guys are, I think it sets up for them to succeed this year. I'm predicting them to play each other in the CFP semifinals, so I'm going to say one of them breaks through and gets to the national title game this year. But I think pointing to both Kirby and Lincoln Riley as guys where the pressure is pretty hot and heavy, given they've had a ton of success, I think you could still see some very disappointing fans, even with a really good season this year, if it doesn't end on a Monday night in the middle of January playing through all the marbles.
Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, our guest here on 3 and Out. Matt, always a pleasure. We'll talk again soon. Thanks much.
Thank you, fellas. Talk to you soon.
And you can check that out, SouthernPigskin.com. Matt breaking down Georgia, I think, has a Florida breakdown up there as well. And each day this week, we'll have more SEC previews from Matt there on SouthernPigskin.com. We've got more to come here at 3 and Out on this Monday afternoon. Good to have you here, 3 and Out on this Monday. And again, we talked a lot of Georgia football there with Matt Smith. Other news to note, Scott Cochran, special teams coordinator, taking a leave of absence to deal with I think mental health issue as put out there by the University of Georgia. Will Muschamp going to step in and replace him on the staff, though not necessarily as special teams coordinator. So you get another coach coming in who's had head coaching experience there in the Georgia sideline, and Will Muschamp, who will fill in for Scott Cochran while he is out on that leave of absence.
And you wish Coach Cochran the best. You look at Will Muschamp, a very accomplished coach. I mean, his experience and his expertise in terms of leading big-time defenses is pretty unparalleled. So what an asset, what a coach to have on your staff, and we'll see what role he serves there for Georgia. But Will Muschamp, certainly a big-time coaching and an accomplished coaching name.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you have those type of guys on your staff. I mean, Will Muschamp, as I mentioned, not going to be really replacing Coach Cochran as the special teams coordinator, but anytime you get a chance to have his expertise on the defensive side of the ball, having another eye. It's not that Kirby Smart don't know what he's doing when you look at his defense and since he's been the head coach at Georgia, but to be able to have a guy that sees the game different than you, that has some things you can add to a defense is already going to be super duper good. But when you add a guy like Will Muschamp to add some of the things he wants to do or can add to this defense or even his input overall as a former head coach from Florida and South Carolina, he's definitely got to be a big time addition. But you do send our best to Coach Cochran, man. You never ever know what each person is dealing with, so we definitely send him our best as he's dealing with whatever he's dealing with right now.
Certainly, we've got more to come here on 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. We'll talk more Falcons, Jags, Braves updates as we could see Travis Darno back in the lineup tomorrow night. We'll reflect on the great life and career of Bobby Bowden as well as talk some other college football. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.